So today we're going to deep dive into a pretty tough story, the passing of Hudson Meek.
Yeah.
You might remember him from the movie Baby Driver.
Mm.
And yeah, young actor just starting out his career and tragically passed away recently.
Yeah.
And you sent us a few news articles about this, and we're going to dive in and see what we can find.
Yeah, absolutely. It's, really tragic situation, especially with the holidays kind of surrounding everything too.
Yeah, it's really tough timing, for sure.
Yeah.
One of the things that I noticed right away from this People magazine article is kind of a jarring contrast between his final Instagram post and the announcement of his passing.
Right.
Just 2 days before he was, super excited about the future. And then suddenly the same account is sharing this really heartbreaking news.
Yeah, and I think too, like the language that they use in that announcement, right? Went home to be with Jesus tonight. Like that immediately tells you a lot about the family's faith.
Yeah, absolutely. And then reading through the obituary, they also emphasize that quite a bit.
Yeah.
Talking about how, the family finds comfort knowing that adults nurtured Hudson's faith.
Mm-hmm.
And that says a lot about the values that he was raised with.
It really does. And I think, amidst the grief and everything like that, the obituary also kind of gives us these glimpses into his personality too, right? Like his love for The Simpsons.
Oh, yeah.
Like watching all 36 seasons of The Simpsons. Like that's serious dedication.
It's serious dedication.
Yeah.
And, I think that's important to remember when we're talking about, this loss. It's not just a career cut short. It's a young life, full of passion and potential.
Absolutely. Yeah. And considering his age, too, the range of work that he did was pretty impressive. You know, that People article linked to his IMDb page?
Mm-hmm.
And it's quite a list for someone so young.
Yeah, I was surprised to see that his first role was all the way back in 2014
Wow.
in a Christmas movie with Melissa Joan Hart
Oh, wow.
called The Santa Con.
The Santa.
Talk about starting young, right?
Yeah.
And then, of course, there's Baby Driver, where he played the younger version of the main character.
Yeah, that role was really, I think, showcased his talent, right? Like, to convincingly portray a younger version of an established actor, like, that takes a special kind of skill.
Yeah, it's not just about looking the part, right? It's about
Yeah.
capturing the essence of that character at a different stage in life.
Exactly.
And it's really impressive.
Yeah.
And beyond those roles, we see he was also in a MacGyver reboot
Mhm.
and National Geographic's Genius.
Yeah, that's what struck me, too, is like the diversity of his filmography.
Yeah.
He wasn't typecast. He was actively taking on roles in different genres and mediums, and suggests a willingness to explore and grow as an actor, which is remarkable for someone so young.
Totally. And he had another film, The School Duel, set to be released next year,
Oh, wow.
which is, another element of this that's just heartbreaking to think about all the potential and the projects that will never be realized.
It's so sad. Yeah, his talent agency, Jay Purvis, called him an extraordinary talent who shone brightly within our industry. Clearly, those who worked closely with him recognized that potential.
Yeah. And his acting out academy was devastated as well, saying that he was one of AOA's first and brightest stars.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, clearly, his loss is being deeply felt by those in the industry who know him.
It's a poignant reminder that success, in the entertainment world, it's about so much more than fame and recognition.
Yeah.
It's about those connections you make and the people you touch and the impact you have on those around you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a really powerful thought.
Yeah.
And, it makes me want to understand more about the circumstances surrounding his passing. All the articles mentioned that the Vestavia Hills Police Department is investigating, but the details are pretty scarce at this point.
Yeah, and I think that lack of clarity is likely fueling some of the speculation that we're seeing already in online discussions.
Yeah.
Some sources like the cheat sheet use the phrase fell from a moving vehicle, while others just say fell out of it.
It makes you wonder if there's a significance to that wording difference or if it's just journalistic style.
I think, unfortunately, without more information from the investigation, it's impossible to know for sure.
Yeah, it's a tough reminder that in these tragic situations, patience is key, and, speculation can often do more harm than good.
Absolutely. We need to respect the investigative process and avoid jumping to conclusions.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So, we've talked about the contrasting emotions surrounding his last Instagram post and the family's faith. We've explored his career, and we've touched on the limited information about the accident itself. I'm curious, from these initial articles, what stood out to you the most?
I think what really struck me was the obituary's focus on the adults who fostered Hudson's faith.
Hmm.
It speaks volumes about the impact that we can have on young lives, particularly in shaping their values and beliefs. Yeah, it makes you think about the responsibility that we all have as adults, right? Whether we're parents or mentors or just young people encounter in their daily lives.
Right.
Our actions and words can have a lasting impact.
It's so true. And it makes me think about, the unique pressures that young actors face in such a demanding industry.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a world that often glamorizes fame and fortune, but the reality is that child actors navigate a really complex landscape.
For sure. Balancing those demanding schedules with education, dealing with the constant public scrutiny, and sometimes even being exposed to mature themes at such a young age.
Right.
It's a lot to handle.
Yeah, and we can't forget about the emotional roller coaster of auditions and rejections too, which is inherent to any acting career.
A rejection is tough for anyone, but for a child actor, it can be especially difficult, right? They're still developing their sense of self-worth, and constant rejection can really take a toll.
Yeah, it's essential for young actors to have a strong support system in place, family, friends, mentors, people who can provide guidance and encouragement.
Absolutely. That support system is key.
Yeah.
They need people who can help them navigate the ups and downs and remind them of their value beyond their acting successes or failures.
It's a delicate balance.
Yeah.
And sadly, even with the best support, those pressures can sometimes become overwhelming.
It's a harsh reality of the industry for sure.
Yeah.
And it makes you really appreciate the dedication and resilience required to make it as a child actor. It's not just about talent. It's about mental fortitude as well.
Absolutely. And speaking of dedication, the BBC article mentioned that Hudson did video game and commercial voiceovers in addition to his on-screen work.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's impressive.
It really is. It shows that he wasn't just chasing fame. He was passionate about the craft of acting in all its forms.
Yeah, and it's also interesting to think about the specific skills that are involved in voice acting too, right?
Yeah.
It's a completely different world than on-screen acting.
Totally. It's about using your voice to convey emotion and create characters and bring stories to life without any of the visual cues that you have in film or television.
Exactly. Yeah, it requires a different set of muscles, both literally and figuratively.
It's a real testament to his versatility as an actor. He was comfortable in front of the camera and behind a microphone, bringing characters to life in a variety of mediums.
Yeah, it speaks to a willingness to experiment and push boundaries.
It really does. And while we've focused a lot on his career, we can't forget about the immense grief being expressed by those who knew him personally. His family, his friends, his colleagues.
Yeah, their pain is palpable in the statements released by his acting academy and talent agency. Acting Out Academy called him one of their brightest stars, and Jay Purvis said he shone brightly within our industry. It's clear he left a lasting impression on those who knew him best.
It's heartbreaking. They're mourning not just a talented actor, but a friend, a student, a colleague. It's a stark reminder that behind the public persona, there's a real person with loved ones who are deeply affected by this loss.
Absolutely. And their grief is likely compounded by the lingering questions surrounding his accident too, right?
Yeah.
The limited information available makes it really difficult to find closure.
It's true. While we have some details, the lack of clarity can really fuel speculation and make the grieving process even more challenging. It's a reminder that even in a world where information travels so quickly, some things take time to unfold, and patience is essential.
It's human nature to want answers, especially in the face of tragedy.
Right.
But in these situations, it's so important to respect the investigative process and allow the truth to emerge in its own time.
It's a tough balance between satisfying our curiosity and respecting the need for a thorough investigation.
It is, and this case with a young person in the public eye brings its own set of complexities.
It does. Celebrity deaths often capture public attention. But it's important to remember that at the heart of it all, this is a personal tragedy for those who knew and loved Hudson.
Absolutely. It reminds us that fame and fortune offer no protection from life's unpredictability.
It's a sobering thought as we delve deeper into this story. What's resonating with you the most so far?
I'm struck by the duality of this situation. On one hand, we have this young, talented actor with a promising future ahead of him, and on the other, we have this tragic accident that cut his life short.
It really highlights the fragility of life, doesn't it? And it makes you think about, the impact we have on others while we're here.
It does, yeah. And in Hudson's case, that impact seems to have been significant. The outpouring of grief from his acting academy and talent agency speaks volumes.
Yeah.
They clearly saw him as more than just a client or a student.
Yeah, it sounds like he was a bright light in their lives, and his absence will be deeply felt.
Absolutely. And, it's interesting to think about how his work will continue to resonate with audiences, even though he's no longer with us.
That's a good point.
Mhm.
His films and TV appearances almost become like time capsules, preserving his talent and allowing us to connect with him in a way, even after his passing.
Yeah, like a legacy that lives on. And in a way, it challenges our perception of celebrity, too. We often see these figures as larger than life, but this tragedy reminds us that they're just as vulnerable as anyone else.
Yeah, it's humanizing realization, isn't it? It
Yeah.
kind of strips away the veneer of fame and reminds us that behind the public persona, there are real people with hopes and dreams and vulnerabilities, just like the rest of us.
It makes you appreciate the importance of empathy and understanding, regardless of someone's social status or profession.
It's a lesson we could all use a reminder of from time to time.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what final thought would you leave our listener with?
I think Hudson's story, as tragic as it is, serves as a powerful reminder to cherish each day and to make the most of the time that we have.
Hmm.
It encourages us to, express our love and appreciation for those that we care about, to pursue our passions with vigor, and to live with a sense of purpose and intention.
Beautifully said. It's a message that resonates deeply, especially during this time of year. And to you listening, we hope this deep dive has provided some insight and perhaps sparked some reflection on the importance of living a life filled with meaning and connection.